Welcome to Capital City News, your connection to Salt Lake City government. I'm your host, Poonam Kumar. Today we'll hear from David Everitt, the mayor's chief of staff, about his roles and responsibilities in the city. And our History Minute this week highlights Salt Lake City's history in comic books. But before we see what's been going on in the city, let's start with our legislative updates. At the Salt Lake City Council's January 6th meeting, council members elected a new leadership team for 2015. The 7-member group chose Luke Garrett, who represents District 4, as their new chair. Garrett was first elected to the council in 2007 and re-elected in 2011. James Rogers, who represents District 1, was chosen as the vice chair. Rogers was elected to the council in 2013. The new leadership team will serve a standard one-year term beginning immediately. On January 14th, the mayor delivered his State of the City address to the children of Whittier Elementary, where he talked to them about issues ranging from air quality and a connection with nature and the outdoors to the economy and civility in government. Be sure to watch the whole address online. The mayor of Salt Lake City appoints a chief of staff to act as an administrator for the various departments in Salt Lake City. Today we'll be speaking to the current chief of staff, David Everitt, about how he manages the city.
My name's David Everitt, and I am Chief of Staff to Mayor Becker and have been for almost exactly 7 years now. A Chief of Staff is an incredibly individualized position, and so depending on the person to whom you are the Chief of Staff, it could be a million different things. And in Salt Lake City, the way Mayor Becker's chosen to set it up, Chief of Staff really acts as a sort of CAO or city manager for the city. And you know, we have 3,000 employees in this city, and obviously I can't, as the Chief of Staff, necessarily work with every one of them individually, but it is really my job to make sure that the mayor's agenda is implemented by the department directors and that our executive staff is all oriented toward achieving the goals that the mayor has set out for the city. My day-to-day is different every single day. I've yet to have 2 days that were really even close to being the same. I have a lot of meetings that are recurring, but generally I am playing both offense and defense and helping people deal with fires that come up, as it were, in the city, whether it's an employment issue or a water main break issue, a communications issue that we have to make sure we're addressing. I deal with individual constituent issues that come up depending on what they are. And I certainly play a strong role in helping form the mayor's budget proposal to the council, which, as you can imagine, takes a lot of time and a lot of energy over about a 6-month period. I mean, I tend to describe my position as where the politics and the administrative responsibilities of the mayor, who's the full-time CEO of the city, where those converge, and that's what keeps the job interesting. I really do love living in this city, and a couple of things are why I stay here and remain here and love this place. One is the ability for me to get on my bike and within 10 minutes be on a single track trail from downtown. I live right downtown and I can just ride my bike right up City Creek and boom, I'm on the Bonneville Shoreline Trail, and that to me is unparalleled. You just can't beat that. There's just really no other city of our size that has that kind of access to really wild lands, frankly. And the other thing is the way our downtown is really coming together. I have really enjoyed not having to drive my car to pretty much access all the urban amenities I want within a few blocks distance. I mean, with Harmon's moving downtown a few years ago and the resurgence of restaurants and retail establishments downtown, it's just been a delight to be downtown and not have to worry about traffic and worry about driving my car around.
And now it's time for our History Minute.
Salt Lake City has been featured in many comic books over the years, from indie books like The Salt City Strangers and Let's Go to Utah, to books from some of the biggest publishers in the world. Even Spider-Man once called Salt Lake City home. After being fooled into believing he was his own clone, he roamed the country and ended up in Salt Lake to make a new life for himself. He fell for a Salt Lake City police detective, even taking her on a date to Trolley Square. But his time here was spent doing his best to take down the ruthless drug lord of Salt Lake, Vincent Tannen. Once, Superman met up with Batman in the foothills overlooking the city on his walk across the country, but he'd also visited Salt Lake in the winter of 1992, answering the Christmas-time letter of a boy whose father was dying. The Flash made an appearance here in the 1980s, fighting off the villainous Kilgore on the Salt Flats after the destruction of Salt Lake City's Star Labs facility. More recently, Archie and the entire gang in Riverdale were once given a tour of the Salt Lake City Library by Mimi Cruz, the owner of Night Flight Comics. She also inspired a sight of unspeakable violence in Frank Miller's Sin City graphic novels, Mimi's Night Flight Motel. During the Marvel Comics run of Godzilla in the 1970s, the infamous kaiju and his enemies tore through downtown, leaving the temple shattered in the wake of violence. Salt Lake has even survived the post-apocalypse in the Marvel universe. In the Old Man Logan story, Wolverine and Hawkeye travel through the city, renamed by the kingpin of crime who took over the city, and are forced to watch Daredevil and the Punisher fight velociraptors to their deaths at Rice Eccles Stadium. With all of these appearances in the pages of comic books through the years, it's no wonder that Salt Lake City is home to one of the largest comic book conventions in all of North America.
By the way, you people have the greatest Comic-Con in the world.
That's it for this week's Capital City News, your connection to Salt Lake City government. Be sure to tune in next time to keep up to date on what's happening in the city. For SLC TV, I'm Poonam Kumar.